This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
Welcome to the OI podcast, the Otago Institute podcast. In-depth conversations with experts from the worlds of arts, sciences and Mataranga Māori. Brought to you by the Otago Institute, the Otago branch of the Royal Society for Arts and Sciences. Kia ora, I'm Dr. Barb.
And kia ora, I'm Trudy. And what a gloomy Friday it is today. So we've got a super hike.
It's a bit drizzly. It's a bit drizzly.
It's great. Look at it.
It's a bit drizzly. It's fresh out there.
Fresh.
Did you see there was orcas in the harbour last night?
Oh, yeah, I heard that. I wonder what they're chasing. Yes.
Oh, no squid maybe?
Maybe
just, I don't know.
Oh, they might be having a play, yeah.
Let's
go see what's going on up
here. They're checking it out because Fashion ID Week's coming, so they're just checking things out.
I hope they're dressed to kill.
Well, they're wearing black. Oh, true, yeah, it's a terrible pun.
Got to get them out there.
Oh, dear, that's a terrible pun. Hey, today's show is all about fashion ID Week, and we have got a true expert on fashion in the studio with us today here.
We do indeed. So we've got Jane Malthus.
Malthus.
Very got to get it in my mouth around that one. Thank you. So Jane's got a home science degree majoring in clothing with a PhD in history and clothing and textile science and material culture. Now we're talking about material like fabrics, not about money and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Amazing. So she's taught high school briefly in all sorts of areas, as well as working at the University of Otago in the Clothing and Textile Sciences division for 22 years. Man, that's one amazing feat. Did a fine arts degree at Otago Polytech as well, majoring in painting and taught in the design department part-time for 17 years. And is also, but wait folks, there is more, this is amazing, has been an honorary curator for dress at Otago Museum since 1980 and has worked with the Eden Hall dress collection since the late 1980s. So we've got some really interesting subject matter coming up today, but a little about fashion.
Yes. Oh, welcome to the studio, Jane.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for coming along. And I believe you're on the board of the Fashion ID Week steering committee or some such thing. I can't remember the actual...
Well, we call it the board or the committee. And so I'm one of the board members.
And it's quite amazing fashion. Sorry, I should say ID fashion. I keep wanting to say fashion ID, but it's ID. Is there a reason between...
It's ID Dunedin fashion, so that...
What's the D for Dunedin?
The D is for Dunedin.
What's the I for?
Good question.
I thought it was ideas.
It could be ideas. It could be international. It could be because we have the international young designer designer awards.
Right.
As well.
So it's a whole week, isn't it? Is it a week or is it longer than a week? What's the sort of period that we're looking at?
It's a kind of Tuesday till Sunday, basically.
Right. And it's going the start of April.
Yes. Yeah. So the opening function is the 1st of April in the evening, and that's to welcome the international designers who come for the awards ceremony and judging. They have to be present in Dunedin in order to talk with the judges and show their collections.
Right. So they actually have to be here.
And that's on the Wednesday.
Right.
And then they show their collections at the railway station show on the Friday night and Saturday night.
Right.
And the awards themselves...
And that's all ticketed, isn't it?
That's all ticketed. The awards themselves are announced at the end of the Friday night show.
Right. So it's actually quite a big thing. It's not just a Dunedin show. It's a really big...
But there is a whole more local component with Dunedin and some other designers from around the country showing their in-season collections as well. So that's one part of the show. And then the awards are the graduate awards are the other part of the show.
So the graduate award, so there's the big part with the awards is international. Anyone can come.
Yes. Well, they apply.
Right.
So lots of people apply, and then there's a pre-judging panel, if you like, who do the selections of
So only the best of the best.
Only the best of the best, and they're from all around the world.
Right. Do you know where the most far-flung people are?
I know that's a good question, and I'm not entirely certain, but I think there are people from the States, from Bangladesh, from various European countries, from Australia. We get quite a lot of entries from Australia, of course, because, they're our closest neighbour, and it's easier for those people to get here, of course. But, it's fantastic, actually, that people do apply and that it has that kudos.
Yeah. And I think Dunedin has quite a name as a fashion place, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It definitely does. And I think that's down partly to Nom D, to be quite honest. But
true.
other designers too. So we've had Mild Red, Donna Tulloch, and Company of Strangers, Sarah Monroe. For example, now we've got Taylor here as well, and Repertoire, and other designers who are not necessarily based in Dunedin, but who have outlets in Dunedin.
Right.
But I think.
And the School of Fashion Design, and
exactly,
and the Dunedin School of Art's very old, and that must sort of feed into that kind of fashion and design.
And I think, my feeling is that Margie Robertson's Nom D label has put that kind of gothic-y
that Dunedin look.
Yeah, that Dunedin look.
I was going to ask you about the Dunedin look. What is the Dunedin look? There's a name for it, isn't it? Is it Dunedin chic or?
Yeah, good question, which I can't quite answer. Actually, back in 2015, I wrote a whole paper on what is fashion place-based and can you identify a Dunedin look. But right now, off the top of my head, I can't quite remember what I
so do you think
concluded.
Fashion,
but I
think fashion is place-based a bit, isn't it?
And I think there definitely is a kind of Dunedin look, and it is quite dark. People do think of it as a lot of black.
A bit like Scarfy's movie, just a wee bit dark.
Yeah. But I think it's also a bit that layering as well.
Yeah. I think movies like those ones did feed into that idea. It's partly the architecture as well, and the
weather.
Because there is sort of a gothic feel to some of the architecture in Dunedin.
Exactly.
Particularly the university and the
the railway station and the railway station. All those. That was that whole neo-Gothic style of the 19th century. So, it's not surprising that we've got that label because we've kept that architecture, whereas some other places might have got rid of it. So yes, I think there is a Dunedin vibe, but there is also a whole other vibe, like people like Charmaine Reveley, for instance, who do gorgeous lace and colour and all of those things. So there, it's
but
not
also
just
from Dunedin.
Yes, exactly. It's not
going
just
against type.
Well, why wouldn't you though?
So it's the whole thing, isn't it? You have type and then you go against type. Actors do it. Why wouldn't fashion designers do it?
Exactly.
I have to say that having been to the Runway show at the railway station only twice,
have you been to it?
Twice, but it's fantastic. Like it's the closest thing I'd ever get to a Paris walkway event, and I didn't think I was that interested in fashion, but man, it's so well done, and it's hyped up.
I think Trudy is quite interested in fashion because I see what she wears, and she's got fantastic pink cowboy boots.
I'm
jealous.
Anyone
already.
who's invested in pink cowboy boots is invested in fashion.
Yeah. And I think surely part of the attraction must be here's a runway at a railway station, so like for the people.
It definitely has that difference, I think, point of difference to have it at a railway station. So we have had it over the years in different places. It was at the Regent once. It's been in the town hall.
Yeah.
But people seem to really love the railway station venue as a place to hold it.
Fingers crossed for the weather.
Yes.
A nice, balmy Indian summer evening rather than hail would be nice.
Somebody said
for
to
the
me
models.
this morning, what you really need for the railway station is a really good coat. Doesn't matter what you wear underneath, just wear a coat.
Yeah.
I know, it's such a great event.
Yeah, and the railway station is, I think I read somewhere that it's the most photographed building in New Zealand. And I can believe it because I don't think there's anyone who comes to Dunedin who doesn't take a photo of the railway station because it's an amazing building. It just needs more trains.
Well, not during the runway.
No. And that's one of the other, really great things about the railway station show is that they do line up carriages, not actual carriages with seats in them. They're wagons.
They're wagons.
Oh, right.
So you
And they've
sit
got-
in the wagon.
And you're sitting
Oh,
in
you
the
sit
wagon.
in the wagon.
Yeah,
So
you're
you can-
on the track
you can-
looking at the place.
Oh,
Yeah, you can
fantastic. I
buy a
didn't know
seat
that.
on the runway itself, on the on
yeah.
the station
On the railway.
platform,
Oh, how
or
amazing.
you can buy a seat in one of the wagons, and it's a whole logistical exercise
Oh, I'm
to
sure
get those
that
wagons
just-
here.
oh, my goodness. I just-
lined up for for the show. But
Yes.
we say all kudos to Dunedin Railways and
Yes, oh,
and the
wow.
Railways Corporation for doing that.
That is
because it
fantastic idea,
yeah,
isn't it? Yeah.
It's great.
And are there things for sale there as well, or is it just a show?
It's mostly just a show, but funny you should ask that question because this year we got some ID socks made, so they're merino socks and they've got the ID logo in white or red. And they are going to be for sale at the show. I think there are going to be people who are sort of coming around and trying to talk people into buying
It's
a pair
an
of
interesting
merino
idea,
socks.
isn't it? Merino socks. Show your colours.
Well, especially when you're sitting in the cold at the railway station. I think you're on a winner there.
Because, of course, you can use socks as mittens as well.
Yeah,
exactly. In extremis, aren't it? And it sounds an absolutely fabulous night. So now there's 2 shows, isn't there?
Yes, Friday night and Saturday
Friday night
night
and Saturday night. And they just go to the website to get the tickets. Yeah.
Yes. A lot of the tickets have sold, but we have introduced some more seating, actually.
Wow, it's already sold out.
No, not completely,
quite.
but...
But by the time you're adding on extra seatings,
Yes,
that's quite a flurry,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's been great, actually. The tickets have been for sale for a while now, so yeah. But it is good.
And
great for us.
it's not just the clothes, though, is it? It's also the makeup and hair.
Yeah.
There's kind of a...
Yeah, there's a whole backstage.
There's a whole
and
backstage
all
with
of
the
that.
music
And
and
the
the
lighting. It's, just like being embarrassed.
And will there
Yeah.
be food and wine and things available at the event?
People have
think I'm
to
obsessed with food,
pre-order their food.
wow.
I think they do that when they buy their tickets. So Vault 21 are doing food boxes for people.
Nice.
And there will be drinks available, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, there's
Fantastic.
definitely.
And it sort of goes for, 2 hours, 3 hours?
Yeah, maybe 3 altogether. I'm not exactly certain of the timing. We try to keep it really tight.
Yeah.
So we have a great backstage crew who get
It's the whole
everybody
thing, isn't it? All that
organised
choreography
and do
behind
the
stage.
calling, and and the models are all in groups of 3 or 5 or however it works
And when
for
you-
them. And it's
when you're
very
judging
slick.
them...
I don't do
so
the
you're not
judging,
judging them, but when
no.
the judges are judging
Yeah.
them, are they judging them on how the clothes look on the model, on the runway purely, or are they judging them on other, like how well it's put together, or...
For the ID International Awards, the judges meet the student. The student does a presentation. They present their lineup of clothes. They talk about aspects of the design, aspects of the materials, what their ideas were about what they are trying to achieve. They also have to have a sustainability statement because sustainability is
where that
quite a
comes
big
from. Interesting.
part of what we're trying to promote. And then there are a number of categories in which the judges are making decisions. So it's not just one prize; it's a number of
so
prizes.
What is there, like bridal dresses, and because at the end of a show, there's always a bride's dress, isn't there?
Well, that used to be the case, but it's not.
It's not anymore.
No, I was actually talking about that in relation to my other topic.
We will segue seamlessly on into this amazing book here in a second. But finish off on the categories of the.
Well,
is there a menswear category?
First, second, and third prize, but there's also a wool prize. There's a sustainability prize. There's. Sorry, I just can't remember off the top of my head what the other
that's
prizes
interesting
are.
But there's some fabric type
There are
ones,
some, yeah.
And really liking that idea of like kind of giving a bit of a boost to New Zealand wool industry.
Oh, yes.
Because of course, that's quite a big thing for New Zealand and really in need of some
tender loving care.
Care right at the moment. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, no, I think it's very sad that wool is not much more popular
Yeah.
and used more because it is such a sustainable product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so much
safe.
nicer to wear and to work with than synthetic polyesters and things. I have entered the Runway revival for my sins. Keen listeners of the OI podcast will know all about this because I've mentioned it every week since I started. But my focus is just on it. So I have brought along, these are all my things. So I got the 9 to 5 category. So there's the denim reinvented, there's a 9 to 5 category, and there's a bridal dresses.
How fantastic.
One where you change them into different things.
Oh,
so
yes.
you get a starter kit.
Right.
And then you get a $50 voucher to spend in Shop on Carol.
Excellent.
And so you've got half of the fabric you've chosen and half of it you've just been given. And then you have to make an outfit. And my husband agreed to be my model. So I'm making a menswear. And the 9 to 5 collection was almost entirely, with the exception of a men's wedding shirt and a young men's black suit type thing.
Yes.
Oh, and a grandpa synthetic shirt. Right. Apart from that, it was all very tiny.
Right.
Female gear.
Right.
And one massive bright pink size 26 skirt. So, yeah, that one. Yep. So it's immediately obvious which one that one is. So I took the dye pot to some of them and I got that nice shade of purple from but they're all polyester. The only thing that was not polyester was the wool suit, which was handcrafted. No, that's cotton. Yeah, sorry, there was also the cotton. Yeah, that's a throw that I got with my money, with my voucher.
Oh,
it was that was $4 and it was a massive double bed size cotton.
Gorgeous.
Cotton throw, and I thought I would make the shorts out of it for my husband, and he just absolutely vetoed it on grounds of taste. So I've used it to
standards.
So I've used it to make all the toils for the jacket and everything. Am I saying that word right?
Toils.
Toils.
Yeah, so it's spelt like toil.
Yeah.
But toile is how
Toile
it's
is
said.
how. Thank you for that, because I had been stumbling over that forever, thinking, how am I supposed to say this word? Toile.
Yeah, toile. Yeah,
toile. So it's basically my practice run.
Practice run,
yes.
Exactly. And you use it for fitting. And
I use it for fitting.
But this is a great colour palette.
Yeah,
Isn't
no,
it
thank
wonderful?
you. I'm quite happy with my colour palette, and I've the beige ladies' trousers there got changed into that charcoal grey,
Well,
and the pink has gone into that sort of lavendery purple colour, and I got this beautiful polyester tie. I've also got a silk red tie, which was beautiful, and I'm using that for my formal devices, just to link things together. I like collecting these.
This sounds fantastic. I'll have to come. And
anyway, there's two opportunities to come.
Yes.
There's a dress rehearsal on the 30th of March.
All right.
And that's actually at the Shop on Carol, and it's sort of a family and friends event. It's a little low-key, $15 a ticket. And then there's the actual runway, which is $65 a ticket. And there is definitely going to be champagne, wine, and canapes. And there's a proper runway. It's not at the railway station. It's still in the transport mode. It's at a car dealership, and I can't remember which one.
Oh, what a great idea.
And I'm going to get black points for not remembering which one it was. But anyway, that's, so Shop on Carol and the Presbyterian Support are organising that. We did a fantastic interview with Kristen Waite from Shop on Carol, and she was talking all about fast fashion and sustainability. And it's nice to hear that sustainability message is going all through fashion
I
ID.
just think it is so important in the whole worldwide fashion industry, to be honest. You know, the world can't continue producing all this essentially junk fashion that, you know, I know that it's affordable for people, but it's not affordable for the planet.
And it's also the human cost and some of the production as well.
Yeah, there's the human cost and the production.
Yeah.
But I think there's also, the trouble is, as well, is that each item is cheap, but they last for such a short amount of time that they end up you end up spending a lot.
Yes, over time.
But people who don't have the ready money.
Yeah, you got to have the upfront.
You've got to, and it's that whole thing where, you know, when, and it's the same with food, you know, of course it's cheaper to buy in bulk, but if you don't have the money to buy the thing in bulk to start with, then you can't buy your food in bulk, and, you know, setting up to do preserves and stuff, all of that costs money. And I think it's a bit the same with fashion and the fact that, you know, in a lot of ways, we've like the fancy fabrics like linen and silk and wool. See, wool didn't used to be a fancy fabric.
No, exactly.
It used to be a standard fabric. A staple fabric, but it's got more and more expensive because it's hard for it to compete at that economic end, so it's sort of shifted into that niche, only making fancy woolen garments. Exactly.
But, you know, the other side of that is if you just saved your money for a bit longer and bought fewer clothes but better quality clothes, you know, then maybe I'm a fine one to talk. Actually, I'm listening to myself thinking, oh my God, look in your wardrobe. You know, I do have this mantra at the moment of shop in your own wardrobe.
Right.
You know, because I do own a lot of clothes. I don't get rid of them because I have always kind of bought quality things or made quality things.
Right.
But so I don't get rid of a lot of them, but yeah, I have way too many in terms of, you know, being able to wear them all.
Swapping clothes is good.
Oh, yeah, do that a lot.
So this dress here in the middle, I washed that. I brought it home and I washed everything from I started and hanging it all up on the line, and I took some reference photos to say this is what I started with. And I had a friend came round and she said, oh, that's actually quite nice, that dress there. Where'd you get that from? I said, oh, it's part of the starter kit. And she said, I said, oh, you know, it doesn't look like it's too far off your size. And she's tiny. But the dress was tiny, so everything is too tiny and I just sort of didn't even think about them. I just bought it because it had this nice pattern on it, and I took that tiny little piece of material off the hem on the seam allowance. Anyway, I said, well, you may as well try it on. So she tried it on, fit like a clown. Anyway, so she walked home with it, and the next day she felt bad because she'd taken away some of my material, so she brought back a corduroy of an old pair of
that's really
their
nice.
men's trousers that she'd got from I think the Salvation Army last year, and she was going to alter them, but it didn't quite work out, and she wasn't sure what to do with them. Anyway, that's turned into the jacket now, the corduroy trousers.
Fantastic. I like a bit of corduroy myself.
It's hard to find it though now.
It's kind of out of fashion.
The fabric shop on Lower Stewart Street has had some...
fabric store.
Sorry, the fabric store.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes. Has had some fantastic corduroy in lately. But yeah, it does. It's.
But what they advertise as corduroy doesn't look like corduroy to me. I just think.
But it has been, like it used to be, an absolute staple. Working men's trousers and men's trousers out of corduroy. Absolute staple. But you're right, it's really hard to find it. And in the like mainstream, shall we say, places.
It needs, you know, a designer or even one, dare I say it, one of those more fast fashion brands like Zara or something to bring it back again. And then it will become popular again.
I would like
the problem.
Them to bring back wool.
That is the problem. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Because honestly, I had the men's trousers and sewing with that wool fabric, because I had they were young, narrow hipped. Very small, like a 12-year-old boy's trousers.
Right,
and I had to cut them into so many pieces to get them into a pair of shorts, like work shorts for my husband. They've got, like, it's all patched up. But because it's wool, it holds a crease.
Yeah, exactly.
And they've obviously been worn because they got donated after the wedding to a drama school, and they've been, you can see where they've been pulled up and put down, and they've been shrunken and put out, and like they've been altered for whoever was doing the production. Yeah. So they have been really well worn. But yeah, the material is beautiful. Yeah. So anyway, that's my rant about the revival. Tell us all about this beautiful book that you've got there, Jane.
Okay, so I've been involved with the Eden Hoare collection of 1970s, 1980s fashion since the 1980s. When I first went up there and met Eden and looked at the clothes.
Who is Eden?
So Eden Hoare was, he died in 1997. He was a Central Otago farmer, lived and worked near Naseby, 5 kilometres from Naseby along the road towards Danzies Pass. And in the early 1970s, he had this idea. So he was sort of retiring from farming at that stage. He had this idea that he wanted to bring tourists, New Zealand tourists, anyone really, back to the Naseby area.
Right,
because Naseby had been bypassed by the railway in the 1930s and the road, and Ranfurly had kind of become the centre of the Maniatoto, whereas it had been Naseby back in his childhood. So he started collecting fashion, because he knew that fashion would appeal to women.
Who would drag their husbands along.
Well, and he already had husbands and sometimes their wives visiting to see his farm and the sort of developments he'd done on the farm.
Right.
So he sort of knew that...
The woman would have something to do.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because they've got a luge up there now, haven't they?
Sorry?
They've got a luge, like a...
Yes, they've got a luge and they've got the curling. And, so there's mountain biking, so there are all those other things that now bring tourists to Naseby. But in Eden's day, those things weren't there. And he set up, so he converted what had been a tractor shed on his property into a fashion showroom, and he also had taxidermied animals in the sort of entry room, as you do. He also set up a aviary and a petting zoo for the kids. So he was catering to the whole family. But he started buying New Zealand designer fashion, and so this book is called Central Otago Couture, and that's where that word couture comes from, because these are designer clothes. They're not necessarily absolutely one-offs, but some of them are, definitely. But
so is that the definition of couture?
Yeah,
that it's a one-off?
Well, no, that it's what he would have called high fashion. So it is. Right. It's designer-made clothes, sort of made more in studios than mass-produced or that kind of...
So you would rock up and say, I want this outfit to go to this event, and they would design it.
They would make it. But some of these designers didn't quite work in that way. They did in part, and they also did... garments that they would then sell So some of the designers that he bought were sold in a shop called Vanity Walk that Margaret Farry Williams ran, first of all, in Princess Street, further along here. So other shops like that he frequented. Sometimes he bought fabrics. He travelled a lot in his winters, so he would buy fabrics and then bring them back and have a designer in Alexandra, Pat Hewitt, make them up into clothes. He bought Vinca Lucas clothes, so she was also a designer in Auckland, like Kevin Bachan.
It's quite stepping out of the mould, isn't it, for a Central Otago
farmer.
Retired farmer
to
be deciding to go that far on into fashion.
Well,
perhaps we might be a bit putting him in a mould.
The whole. I mean, he had history, if you like, with this, because another of the things that he loved to do was to drive. He learned to drive during the Second World War when he was a soldier in Egypt. And he loved driving, and so he got a job, in inverted commas. I don't know that he was ever paid for it. Driving John Hoare Grinnell.
Oh, the singer.
The singer. So John was discovered in Naseby at a talent quest by Joe Brown. Who,
God. It's all coming together.
All these connections.
I might need some explanation.
Okay. So Joe Brown was an entrepreneur who dealt with musicians, but also had the franchise for the Miss New Zealand contest. For 2 quite long periods in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
Lived in Mosgiel, but came from Naseby and was about 10 years older than Eden, so they would have known each other one way or another. Anyway, Joe Brown put on this talent quest in Naseby. John Hoare, as a 17-year-old, sang, and, Joe Brown realised what a talent he was. He had pitch-perfect voice.
What kind of singing did he do?
Country singing. Yeah, country singing was his specialty. He was only 17 at that point, and so he kind of needed a minder. Eden became that person, drove him to gigs, drove him to various things, and went on the Miss New Zealand tour with him. Now, I didn't even know about this Miss New Zealand tour, but once all the Miss Otagos and Miss Taranakis and Miss Aucklands and people were selected, Joe Brown rounded them all up. They drove on buses the length of the country, and they put on shows everywhere that there was a Miss, province person from. Wow. 2 or 3 shows in some centres. On succeeding nights, and there was no TV, or almost almost pre-TV days. So they were a big deal, and so there was music. The Howard Morrison Quartet, for example, sang at these events. Wow. John Hoare sang. So Eden accompanied John to those things for
so 5 years.
So he was seeing all the fashion. He was meeting some of the designers. So there was all of that.
It kind of makes a lot more sense there in context. Yeah.
Exactly. So he wasn't just a farmer. That was the thing, really. Yeah. I mean, he had a much bigger world view, and I think that partly came from his experiences in the war.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that actually was a big driver, because I think my grandfather was the same. He came back from the war, and it's like from being born and bred in Central Otago, and then Egypt and Italy. And,
exactly.
It's seeing a lot of different people and a lot of different things.
Yes.
And it can't but broaden your horizons.
That's right. I mean, you just realise there's a great big world out there, and there's all sorts of things going on in it. And Eden didn't ever stop travelling after that, really.
Right.
He would go off almost every winter somewhere.
Right. It's an interesting name, isn't it? Eden.
That was his middle name. His first name was actually James, but he was always called Eden. Yeah.
And of course, you've got an amazing exhibition to go along with. Is it joined up with the book? Is it part and parcel?
Yeah. So there's an exhibition opening at Toitu at the end of March called Eden in Dunedin.
Eden in Dunedin. And that's what? That's just before Fashion Week starts, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
So that will run while Fashion Week is going. And of course, Toitu right next to the railway station there.
Exactly. It's up in their material culture gallery, so it's going to be there for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
So it's 30-something garments from the collection, which is about 10% or just over 10% of the Eden Hall collection. Wow. So I have to say the collection is now owned by the Central Otago District Council.
Interesting.
It's an odd thing for a council to own, but they bought it.
It's a cultural heritage.
Exactly. That's why they bought it, really. They did not want it to leave the
they wanted to stay in Central Otago. And that was his reasoning for making it, right?
Yeah.
So
this book celebrates both the clothes and the Central Otago landscape.
It is. It's a beautiful book.
I'm amazed at this book here, and I will have to put some pictures.
Weighs a ton.
It does weigh a ton, but it's absolutely gorgeous. So it's actually, these are all pictures of the items from the collection.
Yes. Yeah.
And taken in that amazing Central Otago. Look at this.
And on
landscape. Look at that. Oh gosh,
models.
It's got to be from the 60s,
because
70s.
these clothes are not in a museum, we can, with care, obviously, have them worn on occasion. So when Eden bought them, he had them worn all the time. Like, he was running garden parties in his extensive garden. He took them on the road to fundraise
there's some absolutely fabulous fabrics in there. Look at those.
That's wool.
That's wool, that one, is it? Oh, my goodness. It's a beautiful, what would you call that, a tunic? But it's red with white daisies embroidered on it.
Yes, and then the daisies around the edge of the cape.
Oh, my goodness.
That's one of the things about this collection. Being from the 1970s, there are many capes. Right. Many capes.
Yes. They were the big thing. I was at high school then. And
many hot pants.
They were.
Who doesn't love a good cape, though? I mean, I think they should be well more used than they are.
Hot pants on that one.
Hot pants, yeah.
My grandmother made me a hot pants suit.
Oh, my goodness, look at that.
That is so cool. I was mortified. But
no, I'm not too sad that the hot pants have gone the way that... but capes, look at that.
So that's the other thing. So some of the clothes he collected are products of his farm. So that's sheep's wool
from
spinners and weavers. So he's got in particular Beverley Horn and Pauline Kingston, who were outstanding spinners, dyers and weavers in the early 1970s.
Fantastic.
They were both New Zealanders,
fantastic.
but Pauline lived in Australia. But just fantastic.
Oh, yeah, that's a Beverly
garments.
Horn one there. It says here.
Oh, no, the back.
That one there.
Yeah.
I'm just reading the little caption. 1972, hand-spun and hand-woven Corridel wool.
So Beverly always used the wool of specific sheep breeds, different wools at different times. She wrote a little book called Fleece in Your Hands, which has become a classic amongst spinners and weavers.
I have to get myself a coffee.
Talking about the
So
different
have you
wools
taken
and
all these
things.
photos?
Not me personally. We had Derek Henderson.
Right. So
who's
it says on the front cover, photographs by Derek Henderson. Thank you. Sorry.
So sorry, Derek. We didn't notice.
So this is a joint book with yourself and Claire
Reno, who is the history curator at Te Papa.
Right.
And so Te Papa have an interest in this collection as well.
Wow. I'm sure they have, but they can't have it. What an absolutely glorious book. And so the first part is all sort of description
there's text.
of
there's a biography of Eden and the whole sort of story of it. There's a bit about the fabrics themselves and, how New Zealand imported fabric back then. There were tariffs, that word that we're not supposed to use maybe. And then there's a section about the wool and the skin garments and a section on the competitive fashion. So there are a number of Benson and Hedges Awards winners, for example.
Tobacco was allowed to sponsor things.
Yes, exactly.
Goodness me, the things that we did in the past. And then there's some beautiful Miss New Zealand photos. Again, things that we did in the past.
Yes, exactly.
But oh my goodness, the landscape pictures are absolutely... So did you go out with Derek when they were taking these photos?
So we did 2 separate photo shoots, one in 2019 and then one in early 2024. And the 2024 shoot was 14 days full-time, basically, out every day. We had a van with all our wardrobe in it, if you like, and
just going to different locations.
So Derek had done, on both shoots, he'd done a bit of a scout around to see which locations and where and so on. And people were so generous in terms of allowing us to photograph on their properties.
Did you do any in Cardrona?
No, because I don't think Cardrona is part of Central Otago. So we're talking very much
Depends where you think Central Otago starts. Different things, it's different rules.
The area run by the Central Otago District Council.
Right, yes. No,
I think
Cardrona is Queenstown Lakes.
Lakes.
It is Queenstown Lakes.
So we had to kind of stick within the boundaries of the Central Otago District Council.
We don't think of ourselves
land.
as being at all associated with Queenstown, however.
Mind you, some of us might think you two could just stay together up there and let the rest of us get on with it personally. But
hey, can I ask a technical question?
Yes.
On page 116, there is a gorgeous picture of a yellow, green and orange.
Also wool.
Is that wool?
Yeah, wool crepe.
Oh my gosh, I was going to say it's crepe, but it is wool crepe.
Yeah.
How do you get it that thin?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is a beautiful fabric. Well,
that looks amazing.
Some wool crepes back then were that thin. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a Kevin Bacon dress, and it's modelled on, well, I think it is anyway. He may disagree with me, but Diana Ross and the Supremes, I think, had mini dresses that looked like that.
It does kind of look like that, yeah.
So it's very full-skirted.
Yeah.
Empire line, with the halter neck. Not many cuts in the fabric at all. But, and it was just gorgeous in the wind, as you can see.
I was going to ask, do you put that, like, do you have big fans and things?
No. That's all natural.
Just all natural, just wait till the wind blows?
No lighting. This is all natural lighting.
Wow.
Gosh, and natural.
I would not have picked
landscape.
that as wool. That is amazing. And I think that's a thing with wool is that people have got it into their heads that it's the scratchy, coarse, heavy fibre. And it's just not like the finest Italian suits are made from wool.
Yeah.
I just want to, before we get carried away about wool again, I just want to give a shout out again to the photographer to be able to
Derek
have such an eye.
I know.
Oh my goodness.
Fantastic.
Absolutely
So he's
beautiful.
He's based in Sydney. He is a New Zealander, but he's based in Sydney, and he's hired by big labels and magazines and things all over the world.
I can see that.
Do photography.
I mean, the Central Otago landscape is pretty amazing.
He does landscape and fashion photography. And he does his own projects sometimes as well.
Yeah. Wow. But, like we were saying before about lighting, without fans, just to,
he
positioning and all that.
Really likes the sort of natural look. And even for the models, he liked the sort of natural,
they are actually very, not super made up.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is it that models look sad all the time? I mean,
well, it is.
He's got some models that are looking sort of slightly pensive but happy to be there. But I always feel like if I had someone wearing my clothes, I'd like them to feel happy.
But isn't it that they're supposed to be a clothes peg and it's about the clothes, not them or something? I don't know.
Kind of. I mean, they are there to show off the clothes. But sometimes...
But I do think they have much more natural poses that Derek's got here than normally.
And maybe just natural sort of facial expressions. I think maybe sometimes the sadness comes because models, of course, are quite thin usually. And if you've got a thin face and you're just looking sad. In repose, it can kind of...
Actually, it's just like a byproduct of them being too thin.
Well, not too thin necessarily, but I mean.
So why are they so thin?
We had to have reasonably thin models because these clothes were made. Some of them are a size 6, some of them are a size 8, some of them are a size 10. Occasionally, there's a size 12, but that's the sort of range for this particular collection, and that's, I guess, what Eden was buying because that was, he was using.
I suppose he was using the Miss New Zealand models. Wasn't he?
No, he wasn't always using those people, but he had a group of locals who did some model training in Central Otago and who would go, down to Gore or to Invercargill with them to do the shows he did down there for Plunket, and he was fundraising for different people a lot with his clothing in the 70s.
And so can I buy these books?
This book will be out next week. I think it's March the 13th that it's allowed to be sold.
And from the UBS or?
Yes, I'm sure the UBS will have it. I don't know that for an absolute fact, but I hope they will.
They will do, surely. They'll be listening to this.
Yeah.
They'll be getting stock in as we speak. And it's online, is it? Yeah, so it's online from the... Te Papa, from Te Papa's website.
Yeah, so it's published by Te Papa Press.
So that's their interest in the book.
And
what's their interest in the collection? Do they have
they just support it really. They're really they realise it's a nationally significant collection,
right?
Because otherwise, if Eden hadn't collected these clothes,
would we have them in one place?
They probably wouldn't still exist. That's been my mantra about how wonderful it is that he did collect them.
Yeah, it's amazing,
because
isn't it?
The 70s went so out of fashion.
They did, and it's funny because I think it was because they went so crazy. Same with the music, right? So disco was just so everybody was doing it. It was so everything and so out there.
Yeah.
That it kind of everything flew the opposite, and they were just and the Bee Gees said, they just couldn't get any work anywhere, so they just turned to writing songs for other people. So they made a lot of money. You should make more money from writing songs than you do from playing them.
Yeah.
But it's really strange. Like anything that was really very identified with the 70s just suddenly went ping.
Funny you should mention disco because at the Toitu exhibition. Toitu in that material culture gallery has this lovely series of drawers that you're allowed to open and look in. And so we've got some disco jewellery that is in Eden's collection, like a big necklace arrangement with beads and long dangly earrings.
Yes, they had fantastic jewellery in the 70s.
And there are quite a lot of sequin garments in the collection that also relate to the whole disco thing.
Because it catches
the lights. We haven't got huge numbers in the exhibition, but we have got a little group of gorgeous sequined dresses.
And of course that's there. And so the exhibition, so you curated the exhibition.
I curated the exhibition,
at Toitu. Yeah. So what's involved in curating an exhibition there?
So that means I selected the garments that were going to be used in conjunction with other people, like we talked about it.
Right.
But
which ones the collection will allow you to have, I guess.
Well, and also there had been an exhibition at the Dowse 3 years ago that Claire Renault curated.
The Dowse.
The Dowse is in Lower Hutt. Sorry, that's a museum in Lower Hutt. And that was part of their 50th anniversary celebrations.
Right.
So I didn't want the same garments that had been in that exhibition.
That makes sense, because if you've got 300 garments,
exactly,
and you can only put
200 and something, you
can only put 10% of them on. You want to kind of share it all out.
So I also wanted a kind of spread of the sequin garments, the evening wear, the day wear, the leather, the wool garments.
I didn't see
I had.
That sounds amazing.
There's various garments made of leather in the collection as well, because that's another product of the farm, basically. Sheep's leather, cow leather.
Oh, it's impossible.
Deer
there's
skin.
no market for leather, for skins from farms at the moment. There's absolutely none. No one will buy them.
It's bizarre because people go to Morocco to go visit the dye pits.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. There's just no market for them. Farmers can't sell them at all. And it's weird because, as you say, we're still wearing leather. We're still buying it from somewhere, but we're not buying it from New Zealand. It's ridiculous. Anyway, sorry, I'm on my rant voice again. I'll just calm that down.
That's that whole sustainability bit too, though.
Exactly. Whenever you're getting
using
stuff,
every part of the animal makes sense. If you're going to be eating meat, you might as well be using the skin.
Exactly.
And for something. I mean, we do use it for shoes, to be fair.
Yeah. But I mean, a lot of it is going to waste, but it's also this part of the sustainability is using it locally as well, because, of course, it's the closer you are to the source.
Yes, exactly.
Generally, the less resources you're using and shifting stuff around all over the place. And, the better you can monitor the human work that goes into making it and make sure that the standards are there and that you've got that kind of ethics overlay of it. Because once it's offshore, then it's really hard to monitor that. You're relying on wherever the source country is to give you that information. And I guess that's probably something that's quite interesting, that Eden was looking at this in the 70s or 80s and thinking of sustainability and local products and wool and leather. And that's quite a foresight, because here we are in the 2020s. So that's, 40, 50 years later, and we're really still thinking about sustainability and more thinking of keeping the...
And, I mean, I think keeping it local is one thing, but actually that whole chain of production is getting better. More companies are demanding, more designers are demanding to know how, where their fibres and fabrics and materials come from, what the ways in which they are produced, and that those people who are producing them, say it's leather, from India or somewhere, they want to know, that it's being dyed properly and that the dye is being disposed of properly and all of those kinds of things. So that is getting better as designers and makers.
And I think
and as the consumers are demanding it as well.
So consumers are demanding it, but also, designers
you don't want to put your name on something that's going to end up with a bad reputation. And I think technology enables that to happen a lot quicker now.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
You can tag things.
But you don't have to wait for a report to arrive in the mail or anything like that. So, and there's a wee bit of review. I mean, there's a whole lot of organisations you can go on and see whether, a supplier complies with modern slavery or anti-modern slavery legislation, whether it's sustainable, their water use, all that kind of stuff.
There's that great report that comes out of Australia each year about designers and their sort of rating, ethical rating.
And even some of the cheap brands around, they have a tag. I haven't tested it to go look it up, but they say that this is made out of a certain percentage of recyclable goods
Icebreaker, and I don't think they do it anymore, but they used to have a thing when they first started, Icebreaker, with their merino clothing and fine merino wool, that they had like a QR code on the tag, and you could scan it and they would be able to tell you which farm your yarn your wool came from. Which is a fantastic idea, really. I mean, that's really putting a face to the material. But of course they've gone offshore as well now, so all the making of the fabric and the clothes is now offshore, and they're using Australian and like New Zealand and Australian now as well wool. But
there are still farmer suppliers to Icebreaker.
There are,
But yes, I mean, it's a problem with the costs, obviously.
Yeah.
you know.
Or our market's
Yes.
too small, perhaps.
Yeah,
I
but
don't-
there's that too.
No, I think it's generally that if you send it offshore to India, Bangladesh, China, sometimes even Korea, you can get the manufacturing part of it is cheaper, and that must purely come down to you're paying the people less because you're doing it in bulk, or because you're just paying them less.
I think that's what I mean about our market's probably not big enough. We can't get those value from having a lot of
Yeah.
stuff produced at once. Because,
I mean, you can
I
produce the
remember
stuff
reading
here
an
and
article in
they're
the
still sending
South
it to
China
America.
News, and they were moving factories from China to Vietnam because it was cheaper, because there was a growing middle class in China who wanted sustainable, ethical production around the products they were purchasing. So, yeah, it's quite a fluid industry.
It is quite fluid. And it's not, I mean, it is, labour cost is a huge component, to be fair, but it's also some of the other costs and other regulations that can influence where clothes are made as well. Yeah.
I mean, I always say that because I'm a knitter, and I always say that when people say, "Oh, you could sell that," and I was like, "No, no one would buy it for the price that I would have to charge to pay myself even minimum wage."
Exactly.
And it's like, yeah, I'm sure that people would buy it for nothing, but that's not my life's work to clothe other people for nothing.
So I think there are two different markets we're talking about here. But I've got a friend who knits woolen singlets for preem babies. She just has full of wool and crochets and sends them off.
For free.
Yeah.
It's sort of charity stuff.
Yeah.
Well, undercutting the market.
No,
Well, you
but I
can't
think,
buy it. It's hard to buy.
I think for prem babies, they do, you know,
Something-
like the hospital
Yeah.
will provide a whole little kit for the baby, because, you know, the whole point about a prem baby is it comes rather unexpectedly.
Yeah, that's true.
Early, so that, you know, mothers and fathers aren't necessarily prepared.
Right.
So, you know, to get those things that you need.
And of course, they're smaller as well. Like it's
exactly.
odd sizing because, you know, thankfully most babies aren't prem babies.
I remember my poor son when he was growing up, he always things had to fit 3 periods, so they started off being too big, and then they were just right. Then they were too small before I go out and buy new stuff.
So that's the glory of having lots of kids in a family, right? You
Yeah,
always
you
have stuff
pass
that
the
you always
on.
have stuff that fits. It's just that it's always secondhand.
Second-hand is good when it comes to, well, all of us, but also for kids, you know, because they grow out of it, and so it's great to be able to pass it on and to use it again and to not waste. Yeah.
So we're running out to the end of this interview, Jane. Last thoughts. Last thoughts. So it's Fashion ID week. Your book's coming out.
So that week is that first week of April, and there'll be lots going on. We have not only the things that ID itself organises, but there's a whole associated events program like the Runway show that you're involved with, and all sorts of other things.
It's a big exhibition at the Dunedin School of Art as well, isn't there?
Yes, there's an exhibition there, and there's Margie Robertson's retrospective at the Public Art Gallery. There's a calendar coming out in an ODT next week or the week after, I think. So look for that.
So that will have the whole schedule of everything that's coming out, where it is, and how to get hold of it. And some of those tickets you really need to get online and get them now.
Yes, and if you want to go to the ID show, get online now and look for those tickets, because that is selling out.
Yeah, and the Runway Revival as well on the 3rd of April. They are selling like hotcakes too, and they're going to have auctions there as well. So you can some of the things that people are making you can buy. There'll be all sorts of crazy things. Kristen's got an amazing set of things that are happening there, all to do with it. Yeah, no, and your book launch is happening.
Yes, so that will be happening too. It's great.
And of course, the opening of the exhibition at Toitu. Yeah, and there's some beautiful dresses in Toitu. Some right through from those early 1880s dresses right the way through. There's some really gorgeous stuff in there.
So you can't say there's nothing on in Dunedin.
No, there's a lot on.
There are some beautiful dresses at Te Hura as well, aren't there?
Yes, there are.
Because you're an honorary curator there.
Yes, so we don't have a lot of the garment collection on display at any one time.
Right.
And we haven't got an exhibition in the offing at the moment, but during ID Fashion Week we are doing basement tours. So on the Tuesday and the Thursday at lunchtime-ish, so that will be in the calendar.
Oh, that'll be fantastic. I'd love to go on that.
They're free, but I think people do have to book because we can only take so many for one of those. But we'll show a few highlights.
Yeah, no, that'd be gorgeous. Because there are a couple that are on display at various times, aren't they? But anyway, I'm getting the sign that we should say politely, thank you very much for coming.
It's been fantastic.
Absolute pleasure.
It's been fantastic. Thank you very much for coming along. Ka kite. You've been listening to the OI podcast, the shout out for the arts, sciences and mataranga Māori.
You can support this podcast by becoming a member of the OI. Check out the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences on Facebook or our website.
If you'd like to listen again to this episode or others from the series, look for the OI podcast on OAR FM's website, oar.org.nz.
Brought to you by the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences, the Otago branch of the Royal Society of New Zealand.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.